Good afternoon, everyone. And in my guest case, good morning, because I'm in London and he's in Flagstaff, Arizona. So there's a big time difference. In London here, it's like coming up to quarter past 3. And I believe, Greg, in yours, it's quarter past 8.
Yeah, 8 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, so it's very early for him.
Yeah.
Coming up to, coming into late afternoon for me. And it just shows you that these things, as much as there's a time, we are talking right here and now. So that's amazing every time I think about it. So when we talk about time lapse, and yet we are in the same place at the same time. So without much ado, my guest today is Craig Meriwether. He's a hypnotherapist and he does regression. I like to hear about regression because it can count for so much that we're going through that we don't realize. But I'm going to leave him to talk about that. And he, as you know, is going to talk about his spiritual journey, where it started, what led him onto that path, what he went through, because we are living in a time when mankind is being shaken to awaken and to awaken to remembering just who we really are. So without much ado, Craig, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And been looking forward to this. This is a fun conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of rabbit holes to go down, but we'll get a few questions answered, I think, and have a good conversation.
Lovely. So, Craig, I'm really looking forward to this, especially regression, yeah, and things you do. So wonderful. So I'm going to leave it to you. Take it away.
Well, it's a big topic. We're specifically talking about past life regression. As a hypnotherapist, I help people if they're dealing with some issues of hurt and pain and trauma that maybe started in childhood or maybe happened last month. But what's different about hypnotherapy than, say, traditional talk therapy or psychotherapy is that we're focusing on the subconscious mind, kind of that part of mind that's behind the veil. And that's where a lot of this hurt and pain gets stored. Mm-hmm. Part of the work of hypnotherapy, and that's a whole 3-hour conversation right there, just in terms of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Yes. But we're talking about, before we hit the record button, about all the rabbit holes to go down. And that's certainly one of them, working with the subconscious mind. But part of that is regression. Yeah. Or regressing maybe to the thing that happened a year ago, 10 years ago, maybe when you were a little kid even. Mm-hmm. But what's fascinating about past life regression is this aspect that we return to this earth, this realm, many, many times. And what I like, and one of the books I like that I've kind of focused my work on in terms of studying and helping people through the protocols he set up, is Michael Newton and his Journey of Souls. Michael Newton was a psychotherapist. He passed away in 2011. But in 1969, he was working with a patient of his and wanting to regress him just to childhood, to deal with some hurt and some pain, some trauma he had been going through. He thought that would be one of the healing techniques that would really help him out. And so they're doing this therapeutic hypnosis, just relaxing, moving down into the alpha brainwave state. Biology is literally just, moving down in the alpha brainwave state, where your brain is working at a slower level, that are firing about 18, 20 cycles per second. In the beta brainwave state, you're firing about 12 cycles per second. It's just that daydreamy state. Mm-hmm. There's no mind control in this. There's no taking over somebody's mind. It's just helping somebody to relax to the point where they literally slow down how fast their brain's working, move into that daydreamy, imaginative state, and then some healing work, some deep healing work can happen. Always moving them into that state and moving them, starting the regression process. And the guy went, past childhood. He went past being a newborn, he went past being a utero, and went all the way to this soul state, what Michael Newton eventually called life between lives, and this spirit world that he was in as a soul. And that's where he did his deep healing work, resolved the issues he needed to resolve. And Michael Newton found this fascinating. He wondered if other people could experience this? Could he help other people get to the state on purpose? And so he started working with people in this way, and he developed this protocol on how to get people into that kind of regress state. And what he found fascinating as he worked with people in the 1970s is that people are having similar experiences. And so even though, there's no internet in the 1970s, no cell phones or anything to be in instant contact with anybody, these people did not know each other. They come from different parts of the country, different backgrounds, different cultures, different ages. And yet they were having similar experiences of the soul world. And he did about 20 years of research. And not just one person or two people. He did thousands of people over 20 years. And then he wrote his book, Journey of Souls. He did another decade's worth of research and with thousands of people. And he then wrote Destiny of Souls. It's kind of the volume 2. And one of the aspects of these people's experiences that he details in these books is that we are coming to Earth again and again to learn, to grow, to develop as a soul. So sort of this is school for the soul. And whether we're learning, love or compassion or empathy or maybe something else, we're here to grow and to level up. Not like going to school. At least here in the United States, we start in the 1st grade, go all the way to the 12th grade in high school. Then we go to university, get our bachelor's degree, get our master's degree. Well, that's sort of like what we're doing here. We start off very early at 5 years old, started to go to school, and we build upon what we learn. So let's say, for example, math. If you're learning mathematics, you're going to start off at 5 years old, somewhere around there, learning 2 + 2 = 4. And then the next year, you move up into the next grade, the next level, and you're learning about your times tables, and then long division, and then fractions, and then you're a teenager, and you're learning about algebra and trigonometry and calculus. And then you're getting your master's degree, you're going to graduate school in mathematics, you're doing those crazy equations on the chalkboard, and you built upon over however many years, 12 years or so, 10 years, to master mathematics. Well, the idea that's presented in the Michael Newton books and other people's books as well is that that's what we're doing here. As souls, we're leveling up and returning it again and again. And we seem to be returning with the same group of souls.
Yeah.
So like if you start at 5 years old at the same group, you just kind of continue on to getting your master's degree all together.
Yeah.
And you play different roles in different parts. So it's not like maybe even a theater group. If in your town there's a local community theater group of 8 or 9 actors, and they decide, well, in the new year we're going to do this play in January, and here's who's going to play what role, and here's the time period it's going to be in, here's how these characters are going to learn and grow, so by the end of the play they're kind of different characters, and here's the costumes people are going to wear. They do a play, they take a little break, and then in March they're going to do a totally different play in a totally different time period.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a time period before that last play, or maybe it's afterwards. They're all playing different parts. They get the scripts handed out. They're playing different parts, wearing different costumes.
Yes.
All the way through the year. And so it's not unlike, that's not the greatest, analogy in the world, but it shows you, it gives you an idea that we're here to learn, to grow, to develop, maybe using different parts. Maybe we're working with the same people to try to understand different viewpoints of a certain situation, of love, of wealth, of health. What is it to be super healthy and run marathons and things? What is it to not be healthy? What is it to be sick?
And I think it's also, we're here to learn different viewpoints because we're here to grow spiritually. We're here to be, because we are an extension of the Creator. So we're here to see things in a different way, in different times, under different circumstances, and growing wisdom, courage, and compassion, and therefore growing our light so that we can be once more at one with the Creator and experience all those different things. Now, let me stop you there, because that is interesting. I want you to hold that, because we must come back to that.
Yeah, okay.
How did you start? What happened way back when for you to even think about hypnotherapy, regression, and all that. I mean, you've like me, we all have that spiritual calling. What happened way back that you listen to that spiritual calling?
Well, it probably started off me growing up in the Episcopal Church, Craig Meriwether. You don't get more United Kingdom than that. My heritage is of England and Scotland and Ireland. I did one of those uh, DNA tests, and it's something ridiculous, like 95% United Kingdom. But I grew up in San Diego, California, Southern California. And I think the only reason we went to the Episcopal Church is because it's down the street. If it was Methodist or Baptist, we would have been that. But with Episcopal Church, I really liked it. I liked the candles and the robes and the ceremony and the ritual. And so it was a very important part of my life growing up. Just, my friends were there. I actually ended up going to a Baptist-run school. Well, here from 6th grade to 12th grade. So it's somewhere around 10 years old to being 18 years old. I was in a Baptist-run school Monday through Friday, and then in the evenings or weekends or things, my friends went to the Episcopal Church. So my life was heavily surrounded by religion, and that informed who I am and my spirituality. And this is the 1970s, 1980s. So again, no internet, no real way to really expand your worldview other than whatever book you might happen to stumble across. Well, I then moved to Santa Cruz, California to go to university there. And it just opened my world. This is, about 1990. And that Bay Area near San Francisco and Silicon Valley, Mountain View, and San Jose, where all, Apple computers and everybody started Google. It's just a stereotypical melting pot. There's all people from around the world and there to learn and to live and to work. And Santa Cruz is this beautiful little community by the beach, by the ocean there. And there's all sorts of different cultures and different kind of music and different kind of, you could take an African dance class, you could do a Zen meditation class, you can do all sorts of different martial arts, of course, and there's all sorts of festivals on the weekend. And as you learn about different cultures, different people, they become your friends, you learn about their spirituality. And I started this is more of a slow drip than just kind of jumping into the deep end of the pool. And it was a slow drip to understand more things, including aspects that I didn't understand or know about, like reincarnation, which then, of course, leads to past lives and past life regression and maybe having these memories come forth to create healing or just more insights and discovery about what you're here to learn. And as I'm doing this, there's also this other aspect of myself that was struggling with anxiety and depression.
Oh.
And so that started kind of off when I was a teenager. By the 1990s, mid 1990s, I was kind of been struggling with it about 10 years. And it's one of those things where you just, again, it's kind of the slow drip. You don't know what you don't know. And if I just assumed everybody felt like this is just the way it is. How would I know any different? And those like Prozacs and those SSRI medications, they didn't come out till the mid 1990s, the late 1990s. So really, growing up as a teenager in the 1980s, it's just like, well, you have talk therapy or you have whatever book you might find at the library or the bookstore, and teenager, 14, 15-year-old's not going to do any of that kind of stuff. So I just kind of settled into it. Well, by the early 2000s, of course, the internet's out there. And also those Prozac drugs are out there. And it wasn't something I was so interested in, but it opened up the conversation. It brought it to the forefront of talk shows and internet discussions and things. And depression became something you can actually talk about. And so as I was looking more into it and researching and trying to find ways of helping myself, my son was born in 2001. And so I really, really wanted to find a way to help myself because my mom struggled with depression, I struggled with depression. There's a good chance my son's going to struggle with depression, whether
Okay.
it's nature or nurture or both or some combination. So I wanted to find a way to help kind of clear myself, heal myself. And one of the things that kept coming up in the books and in the blog posts back in the day, classes I would take, was hypnotherapy.
Okay.
It just kept coming. It's like, if you want to change your life, here's 5 ways you can change your life. Blah, blah, blah. And hypnotherapy is a great way because it works with the subconscious mind. And so it just kept coming up. The people I was following, the people I was reading, the people I kind of aligned with and connected with kept mentioning hypnotherapy. So I thought, okay, well, sounds good. And I found somebody I could work with, and I did some deep healing work. And what's fascinating about both these worlds kind of converging, because there's a deeper aspect of hypnotherapy, the spiritual side, where, okay, yes, you can regress somebody to childhood to see if there's some emotions that need to be cleared or resolved, some healing needs to be done. Well, you're accessing a memory. You're not time traveling back to when you're 8 years old or 15 years old or whatever. You're just accessing a memory. Well, just like Michael Newton and even Brian Weiss at that point, Brian Weiss' book, Many Lives, Many Masters, came out in 1988. Same kind of thing. He accidentally wanting to regress something. He's a psychiatrist. Did a training with him last summer. I was 82, 83 years old.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So
I like Brian Weiss.
Yeah. And well, he was one of the great pioneers that kind of opened this whole thing. I think the reason, here's a little tangent here. The reason I think that book is so successful, still people mention it. A lot of people end up coming to see me when we do one-on-one sessions because they read Brian Weiss, specifically Many Lives, Many Masters. That came out in 1988, and people are still coming to this work because of him. And what I think draws people, or people can align with, I guess is a good way to say it, with him particularly, is because he's a left brain analytical academic.
Yes.
And he doesn't come to this, and I apologize for the using this term, but that kind of woo-woo side of things. I live real close to Sedona, Arizona. And we're like right next door to we're south of the Grand Canyon. And so there's this aspect of this work of spirituality that can get a little, and so I don't want, it's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's just like, there's that aspect of it. Well, Brian Weiss is not that. He's a left brain analytical academic. I say that because that's what he calls himself. That's how he defines himself. He has a chemistry degree from Columbia University. He has a medical degree from Yale. He then went to psychiatry. He ended up becoming the head of psychiatry at Mount Sinai in Miami, Florida. And he's working with a client of his for a year. He's good at what he does. He's very good at what he does. And yet he's struggling to help this woman for a year with her extraordinary anxiety.
Yes.
He details it in his book, and wanting to do some regression work back to childhood, very similar to what happened with Michael Newton's patient. Wanted to regress them back to childhood to do this healing work. She kept going, went past childhood, went past being a newborn, and went back to a past life. And I believe it was being in Egypt, if I remember correctly. And she created her deep healing work. They did it several times, going back to this life in Egypt. And she created deep healing work. And at first, Brian Weiss just thought it was a construct of the subconscious mind, creating this story, this allegory, this metaphor to create this healing. That's the subconscious mind can do that. Sigmund Freud said that, Carl Jung, Milton Erickson. Subconscious mind speaks in symbolism, allegory, metaphor, and that's what he thought. This creation of this world or life in Egypt was created by the subconscious mind for her healing. But eventually she was getting so much detailed information. And this is 1980, no internet, no cell phones, no anything like that. She's getting like PhD level Egyptologist, archaeologist kind of information that was verifiable once you had to do the deep research. And she did deep healing work within herself. The anxiety was gone. And
Mhm.
he, as a psychotherapist, said you can't do that kind of deep healing work unless you're processing something that was real.
Yes.
Then she started, as he could continue to work, because he was fascinated about this. He's a educated man of science and wants to learn more about this. He didn't shut the door on it. He wanted to learn more about this. She actually started getting information about Brian Weiss's own private life,
Yes.
including very detailed information about how he had lost his wife and him had lost a child very early, like
Yeah.
when the baby was 1 year old or something like that. Very
Yeah.
private information that pretty much nobody knew. Only a
Yeah.
couple of people in the family knew.
Mm.
And, no internet. It's not like if she was stalking him, she could have just looked him up on the internet. There's no obituary, nothing. Nobody should have known this information. She was pulling in information about his life. And finally, being the analytical academic, left brain academic, the only conclusion he could come to is sort of like that Sherlock Holmes thing.
Yeah.
When you take away the impossible, whatever's left over, however improbable, is the answer. And
Mm.
that's the answer he came to. And that's what he wrote in his book in 1988. And the several other, I don't know how many, but 10 books he's written since then. And so that work, as you see with hypnotherapy and this more deeper spiritual side of it, connect and come together, because again, it's not like you're time traveling. You're not time traveling back to being 15 years old or 8 years old or 2 years old to do some deep healing work. And you're not time traveling back to this past life. It's a memory. You're just accessing a memory. Just like if I was to ask somebody, tell me about work last month and that big meeting where, everybody started yelling at each other. Tell me about that meeting. Or tell me about lunch you had with your friend last week. What was the restaurant like? Where did you go? What were you wearing? Tell me about, being in school when you're 16 years old. Were you
Mhm.
dating anybody? Were you doing sports, doing music, doing theater, doing smoking cigarettes behind the gym? It's a
Yeah.
memory. You're not back being 16. You're not, ask you about your earliest memory. Well, you're not 4 years old. You're having a memory. And this is the same thing. And it's using these tools, these techniques found in hypnotherapy that can help move you back into that memory and create that healing, not alone like you saw in Michael Newton's
Yes.
books, like you see in Brian Weiss's and Dolores Cannon and so many other people. There's great healing that can happen because we may be holding on to it, just like you may be holding on to some hurt and pain when you were 4 years old or 16 years old. Yeah.
Right. Can I stop you there? And again, hold on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to when, because you said you were at college and you suffer from depression. Your mother
Mm-hmm.
suffered from depression. It seems to be something in the family. Now, knowing that these things happen because something in the past, it could have been in your childhood, it could have been in a previous lifetime. When you came across Michael Newton's work, and as you say, you were in Silicon Valley, so there was a lot going on, and you got exposed to a lot, and of course came upon all these things. What because of your depression, you started to look in this, and I think you said that did you do work with Michael Newton, or just through reading his books?
No, just from reading his books. By the time I kind of found his books,
Okay.
it's kind of that slow drip, but I haven't worked with him personally.
So after reading the books and going through, was what stage did you actually say, I need to work on myself, or did you come across somebody that helped you to work on yourself, or made you realize that, you need this to work on yourself?
Yeah, basically the birth of my son, or learning, when Christina told me she was pregnant, it was like, oh, okay, I got to get my life together. It's been before kids and before seriously, settling down and all that. It's a little carefree, trying to live the bohemian life of fun and music and wine and all that stuff. But you time to get serious, especially
Okay.
when a child's involved. And it was just one of those things like, okay, I got to get it together for this. And again, it was like, I hope he doesn't have to go through this. I don't wish this upon anybody, and especially my son. And so it was that, like, hey, now I got to get serious about this. And, you know, this is 2001, and, you know, the internet had been out about whatever, 6 years or so. I mean, and it's getting better. I mean, back in the day, you know, had a 14.4 modem, and it took 12 hours to upload a picture and all that kind of stuff. But about 2001 is getting better, and there's a lot of discussions and forums and things that you could find, as well as, you know, finding books. And again, the bigger discussion that was happening because of Prozac and those kind of drugs coming out, opening up the discussion on talk shows, on TV and things. People are actually talking about it now. And so again, it was just that, you know, I'd pick up a book by, you know, Tony Robbins or whoever the person was, and they would, you know, say, okay, here's 5 ways you can change your life. And it was just one of the ones, like, it kept getting mentioned so many times. That's like, well, the common denominator of all these people, the other 4 points are different, but one's always the same. There's always hypnotherapy. And it was just like, well, everybody's talking about this and pointing to this, so seems to be a sign that maybe it's the way to go. And yeah, you got to do your due diligence and work with somebody. It's like talk therapy, or your doctor, or your, you know, massage therapist or whoever. You want to work with somebody that kind of connect with and align with. But yeah, it just did some healing work there.
Okay, so you came across hypnotherapy. Did you do like a self hypnotherapy, or did you connect with somebody that helped you to look at these things, and that you could talk it through? Because now you were having a child, you needed to get your life together, you needed to sort things out, and so therefore you had to look more deeply at yourself, because you realized something was going wrong, something wasn't going on the way you wanted. So what steps did you take?
It was looking in my community just for somebody. I mean, back then you had the phone book. There was some stuff coming online. People were getting websites and things, but it's basically you turn to the yellow pages, or you ask around, or maybe you see a flyer at the bookstore or something. I don't know. Or the doctor's office sometimes has a little bulletin board of massage therapists or physical therapists or something. And so it was just kind of, you know, asking around if anybody knew anybody, and doing a little bit of research. But yeah, I work with somebody, because you certainly can do self-hypnosis on yourself. I mean, it basically is. You can't make somebody go into hypnosis, so they have to kind of give permission. It's like, yeah, I feel like going into hypnosis now. And while certainly you can do self-hypnosis on your own and do that kind of work, whether it's with a recording, maybe there's something on YouTube. There is a certain aspect of, like, you get into this trancy, relaxed state. And so sometimes momentum gets stalled. And you see this even with the spiritual work, especially when you move up into that life between lives. Certainly it's work you can do on your own, certainly. And again, there's recordings on YouTube and various places, probably Spotify. I have my own recordings that you can take advantage of. But there comes a certain point where it's like, boy, it feels really good here. It feels warm and luscious. It's like you're sitting in a jacuzzi up there in the spirit world. It's like you don't want to get out of the jacuzzi. You just want to stay there. Maybe your friends are there. You just, this is nice. And so it kind of sometimes momentum stalls, because the feeling is so good. And so that's where somebody, like when you're working one-on-one, or maybe even in a group setting, like a retreat or something, having a facilitator and a guide help you. Because at a certain point, you need to get out of the jacuzzi, and we need to move to the next, like the healing place, or you need to connect with your spirit guide, or you need to get more information about moving forward in your current life and how to get unstuck with this or that. So working with somebody one-on-one can be really important. It's not, I mean, technically you could probably do talk therapy on yourself, you know, write a journal and things, but sometimes it just, you need that extra set of eyes, that extra set of extra set of energy, but you know, that energy of somebody else looking from the outside and saying, okay, well, you seem to be stuck in this part. of your therapy, let's move this way or this way. How do you get around the wall? We're going to go through it, we're going to go over, we're going to round it. Let's find a way around this together.
Okay.
And that's where it becomes really helpful. And especially if you're doing a past life. And look, there's people have intense experiences sometimes in their past lives. And that's where working with somebody who's qualified and really understands how to deal with trauma and the more intense situations, not only in this life, but in a past life. Sometimes that hurt and pain that you're dealing with in this life that's connected to a past is there because of an intense experience.
Did you find when you started to work on yourself, and as we said, you were regressed yourself? You had somebody to regress you?
Yeah. I went and worked with somebody specifically.
Yeah, I mean, when I said I didn't mean you regressed yourself, but you did regression as part of your healing. And when you did that regression as part of your healing, what did you find in that regression that connected to your present situation in life? Because why I say that, because your mother suffers from depression, you suffer from depression, and you're saying probably your son. But if it's coming from a previous thing, that chain has to be broken. So what did you find when they regressed you that you could see the connection from past to present?
Yeah, and that's true. So what I did in that, when I first started that, healing process in the early 2000s, that was strictly working on current life stuff. So when I say regression, then I just mean like back to being a teenager, back being to a little kid in this current life, back to the 1970s, 1980s in this current life. But in terms of the more spiritual side of this work, that happened a bit later when I was going to school.
Okay.
But in and of itself, I hadn't done a past life regression until I went to the Hypnotherapy Academy of America. Okay. And that's a school here in the United States. People come from around the world. I think they do a lot of online stuff now after the whole COVID situation. But it was a school you went to, you sat in a classroom with other people. And what I wanted this school because I wanted that training and I wanted to experience it. It was like all those parts of me kind of converged into, well, hypnotherapy helped me so much. Boy, I really have this spiritual side that I'm connected with. I know there can be, because of the books I've been reading of Michael Newton or Dolores Cannon or Brian Weiss or whoever, that there can be healing that needs to be done to these past lives that I'm understanding more and more about. And here's this training, extraordinary training. It's 100 hours of just past life regression training, let alone, you start off with the more clinical side of how do you help somebody who's experienced trauma? How do you help somebody with this hurt and pain and building confidence and strength them to stand in their own power? And there's that work for 6 weeks, 300 hours right there. Then another 100 hours of medical hypnosis where you're learning about pain control and healing acceleration. So there's 400 hours. There's 2 months right there. And the last 2 weeks, is just past life regression and like natal regression, moving back to the womb and things like this. Spiritual side of it, 100 hours over the course of 2 weeks. And part of that process of learning was working with each other. And so the discussion of lecture on these principles, these scientific evidence for these modalities. There may be a demonstration in the front of class, and then you break up into small groups and work with each other, with whatever the lesson of the day was or that week. And so it was then that I started doing past life regression. And I did a bunch of them because, we're working with each other every day. Yeah. And not only the hypnotherapist and I work with somebody, but then we switch. And now I sit in the chair and I experience it.
So because as you say, there was regression looking back into your teenage life and to sort out healing for the present. And then, of course, when you joined this university, it went even deeper. What did you find in yourself all right, not so much as in a different lifetime, but when you started to look at yourself and start healing yourself, and start looking back to those situations, probably as a teenager, as a child, what did you find was the cause that was causing your pain?
There's several different things. Again, there's kind of these aspects of it that are this current life and just my family situation. And of course, a lot of this stuff was, 25 years ago. So it gets a little blurry, not having my journals in front of me and things. But in terms of past lives, and again, this is one of those things where, I've done so many past lives just for myself over the years. It's not like I do 3 or 4 a week. It's just like, do here and there. I did a couple workshops this year just for training for my own self, but you do past life regression. I did one with Brian Weiss. I think we did 5 or 6 over the course of a handful of days. And so they all are starting to kind of get mushy together of what, represent this, because I just drop it and let it go.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well, I healed that hurt and pain, and that I just kind of move on. But and now, having, after so many decades of working on myself, I don't know that I could pinpoint like this past life directly connected to that anxiety, and this healing that I needed when I was 5 years old directly connected to this feeling sad. It's all kind of a mishmash of memories and too long ago
Okay.
memories. But
So what you're saying is that in carrying our pain, it may not necessarily be 1, 2, 3, or 4 things. It could be a series of things as we go along that builds up and builds up and builds up, that then that manifests itself. And it's like, I suppose, like a string with different knots. When you undo one knot, there's another knot, and there's another knot, and there's another knot, and there's another knot to straighten us all out. And it could be 3 big knots, or it could be 20 small knots that we have to undo, and we have to take our time, I suppose, take time to undo those things, so that we can see things in a different way, be as we should, because they're all things that help to mold us to be how we are now. And how we are now is to progress and to change and be better. And it's going back into all those knots. And it takes time. As I'm hearing from you, it takes time. It's not something that, you go, you look back, you solve it, you go another time, you look back. It's a gradual thing. It's a gradual cleaning. It's a gradual healing. And it's something that we probably need to do periodically. Keep.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an extraordinary way of putting it. And whether it's 1 big knot or 3 big knots or 20 little knots, and it's not to discourage people, of course, because but it may just be here you're in this life, you're here to learn about, let's just make it broad, here to learn about love. I was like, well, maybe there's just a few aspects around that need to get healed, and maybe there's other work you want to do. Your kind of intuition, your subconscious mind, your higher self will kind of tap you on the shoulder. It's like, well, maybe it's time to look at this, maybe it's time to look at that. But you can see how maybe, a lot of this gets informed, of course, by our own growing up in a household that maybe was safe, or maybe was filled with love and compassion. That's not going to form who we are, but there are other aspects of that may be informed, of your life, that may be informed by other lives that didn't get resolved. Or the healing didn't happen. Or maybe, just like in school, if you're in a university and you're taking a chemistry class and you don't do well in the chemistry class, you got to take it over again.
Yes.
Or if you're not doing well in school when you're younger, maybe you have to go to summer school, or you have to get a tutor, or if you're not learning the lesson, or like you mentioned before, maybe there's different perspectives we need to take. I wrote in my book, Past Lives Guidebook, about scenario. Now, I have never encountered this scenario with anybody, but wouldn't it be interesting from a learning experience, say, for example, World War II, and you're an American soldier running on to Normandy Beach in France. You are a German concentration camp guard. You also live a life as a Jew in Poland trying to escape. You live a life as a single mom in London,
Yes.
running to the underground during the Blitz. You live a life as a Japanese American in an internment camp in
Yes.
the desert of Nevada, or a Japanese soldier in the Pacific. It's the same soul. It's just like, again, like an actor, you're just playing a different part, a different role, a different character. And just like an actor in one movie can be the romantic lead, the next movie he's a comic foil, and in the next movie he's the villain in a big drama. It's the same actor. It's just like he's playing a different role. And same with this. But because maybe of the issues of that life, things didn't get resolved, or you were the villain. And every story in terms of a character's growth and their arc on how to become a better person kind of needs that villain. You need a Darth Vader in order to have Star Wars, and so you have to have that. Somebody's got to play Darth Vader.
Yes.
And so and maybe you took on that role. Maybe it's voluntary. Maybe it was just like, here's your script for this next life, and go to it.
Yeah, and those different roles that we play, or we come in with the same people helping us to play those different roles so that we can experience things from a different perspective. And it is all those things that help us to grow in wisdom. And it is about understanding different aspects of life and what creates that, and understanding the wisdom behind it. And this is the great thing of the creator, of which we're an extension of, so that we can experience those things and grow and have that compassion and unconditional love.
Yeah. And this is what's extraordinary. We talked a little bit about this before you press the record button. There are so many rabbit holes to this.
Yeah.
That's hard to get done in like a 45-minute, 50-minute conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk for 3-4 hours and still probably have more questions than answers.
Yeah.
And that's why there's been so many books and so much research around this. And but I think it comes down to that intuition.
Yeah.
That somebody may be feeling, and it's those kind of little synchronicities of maybe, a lot of people come to this work when I'm working with somebody one-on-one. In fact, in a little bit, I have a past life regression I'm going to do with somebody over Zoom. As much of this work is done nowadays because people feel relaxed and comfortable in their homes, and gives me opportunity to work with people around the country, around the United States, around the world. But it's that intuition, that tap on the shoulder. And as I was about to say, many people come to this work and they've done the years and years and years of talk therapy. And they've been to the doctors, and they've done everything they're supposed to do, and they're still hurting, and they're still that, maybe that anxiety or that anger or the overwhelm, the emotional upset, and they can't put their finger. And then they read Brian Weiss, or maybe they listen to a podcast or something, or see a documentary or something, and it feels familiar, or it feels comfortable, and it's like, wait, that sounds right.
Yes.
And that's, and that's where a lot of people come to this work. It's their own hurt and pain that they can't find resolution to. And somehow the mention of, well, we've been here before. We're learning and we're growing, and maybe you had to repeat a grade or two. You had to repeat a class or two. And there's still hurt and pain from that.
Yeah.
Not unlike if an actor, if I'm an actor on a play, and I'm doing the play in January, and I just kind of jump off a couch and sprain my ankle. Well, now I'm going to be on crutches for the rest of the play. And then we go into a next play and I'm still on crutches. Well, my sprained ankle is from the other play. It has nothing to do with this play.
Yeah.
But so it's interfering with the work I'm supposed to do in this play. I'm on crutches. Again, not the greatest analogy in the world, but we can bring, hurt and pain with us. And, this work can be quite quite healing.
Yes, I mean, I think when you start to travel that spiritual path, you realize that we are co-creators, and everything that we do, say, is not a punishment. It's an experience for us to grow, to be that bright light which is part of the Creator. And this is what we're out there for, to understand all that, so we grow. So then when we're confronted with certain situations, the decisions we make will be one from compassion and love and knowing. And unless you go through, you won't understand. Because if we go through the tunnel and only see that aspect, when there are different tunnels with different aspects, then we don't really know what that person, which tunnel they came through to live or be the way they are.
Right.
They need to see those different tunnels and experience before they can heal and change, and to become, as we should be, we're an extension of the Creator, and that light of love, of strength, of courage, and unconditional love. So, Craig, now you've written a book. What is your book about? You're also working with people. So tell us, how can people connect with you if they're seeing you and they want to? Tell us a bit about your book, how we can connect with you, please.
Sure. Well, the book is called Past Life. I got a copy right here. I don't know if it'll be backwards or not, but here's my go. I just haven't have it right by me because I was talking with somebody about it the other day. Past Lives Guidebook. Find it on Amazon. And it's about the science and the history of this work. So go back, not just past life regression, but even theories and philosophies of reincarnation through cultures and time, starting all the way back. I go all the way back to Neanderthal burial sites 50,000 years ago. And, did they have way they buried their loved ones or their community? Did it show any signs of their thoughts around the afterlife? And then more about the science, what the biology, what's going on in the brain. And so it's a different look at this work. There's some stories in there just for context, but it's mainly about what's going on in the brain, what's going on with time and memory. And so that's the book, Past Lives Guidebook. You can find me at sacredmysteryhypnotherapy.com. And work with people one-on-one. We're going to be getting some retreats together in this coming year. And I'm at various expos here and there, at least in the United States. But mainly I work with people one-on-one, whether it's more of the clinical side of hypnotherapy, working with people with current life issues, or if you want to do some deeper spiritual work, past life regression, and you can go to my website. There's a recording you can download to connect with your spirit guide, and some other recordings there you can look at, and more information about the book.
Thank you. So everybody, if you heard that, and very relevant, because as we keep on saying that we're here to work out, to experience, and to grow. And nothing that we have done in the past, where things come to us and we're suffering, we say, why me? It could be that you've done something in the past lives or earlier on, whatever you've brought through, and you just need to experience it from a different point of view. And that gives you the knowledge. That makes you grow in wisdom. Sometimes when we do things, we don't realize what pain we cause until we experience it ourselves, and then we realize, oh, now I see it. So nothing's about punishment. It's about, you create it, now you have to experience. So if you create something that is not so nice, and I say not so nice because not until your actions then you have a reaction. Was it a good reaction? Was it a bad reaction? And if you find it was a reaction that you didn't like, not so nice, then you make a different decision. But then also it may have caused somebody else pain. So sometimes you must now feel that to really understand and grow in wisdom. That's why we come back many times until we don't have to come back at all.
Yeah. Yeah. We get our master's degree, finally graduate.
And that, as Dr. Weiss says, many lives, many masters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. And it was a great conversation. Again, it's like I saying before, this could be a 10-hour conversation. It's still many things to talk about, but thank you for having me.
Greg, before you leave us, can you give us one golden nugget of advice for those who are listening that could help them along their path?
Sure. Well, and this is a little different. This kind of moves more along the lines of my more clinical hypnotherapy, but certainly goes along with your spiritual practice. And there's the word, what you practice, you get better at.
Mm-hmm.
And so this goes, if we're learning piano, the guitar, the violin, we're learning dance, we're learning martial arts, we're learning to walk as a kid. What you practice, you get better at. But what if you're practicing fear or anxiety or anger? Whether it's something with this current life, something from a past life, but if you're practicing that emotional state or that anger at the world, you're going to get really good at it. Yeah. And so a lot of this work, again, that's why spiritual practice. It's what you practice, you get better at. The Dalai Lama still meditates every day. He still practices loving kindness, compassion. He just turned 90 years old last summer. So, it's all about the practice of it.
Thank you very much. So for all my viewers today, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Greg, in Arizona. Until we meet again next time, bye, everybody. Bye for now. Bye-bye.